Honorable adjudicator, do you know what is behind these cheap clothes as fast fashion? To make these clothes so cheap, the companies are using workers to work so long and give so little money. Fast fashion companies know that sweet shop workers, which are the workers of fast fashion companies, are just wanting money to, so they will exploit them and use them just to just make money because sweet shop workers are usually poor people desperate for even little money. So our stance in this debate is clear. Firstly, we believe that banning the sale of fast fashion is justified since these banning these products stimulates the companies to give more money to workers because they need to because they can just produce more better clothes because they, as I explained in my arguments. And secondly, we believe that banning fast fashion would solve the problem of exploitation of workers, as we will explain in the debate and in my speech. So we believe that. Okay, so the current society looks like a world where many sweet shop workers starve because they do not receive much money. That means that they cannot support their family easily, and that means that the family cannot get can will have a poverty cycle because they cannot get good education. The current society already gives basic income to poor people. Plus, we will support more of the poor people so that we will be able to reduce poor people. This is an important preemption. The opposition cannot have any argument about how poor people would not be able to buy fast fashion. So let's move on to my first argument: principal justification of banning the sales of fast fashion. The premise here is that we must restrict some rights for the majority. One example why of how this has been the case is banning smoking in areas next to public buildings. This means that we must have to be able to limit the rights of the company if it means supporting the poor workers in the long run. The mechanism behind this argument is that firstly, poor workers are facing extreme trouble. This looks like the cycle of poor being poor and working for low money getting continued. This is especially for fast fashion because in order to get a lot of profit of cheap clothing, you need to create a lot of them to reduce wages. Secondly, it is the government's duty to prevent workers working in harsh environments. The government and the status quo will not give support to these workers easily because they think that these workers have at least a job. Their side is abandoning these people working in harsh environments. So this policy is justified since we will support the poor people who cannot afford normal clothes, as I said in the setup, but also able to deal with the sweet shop workers who work in harsh environments, as I'll explain why, it will be solved in my second argument. We're justified to solve this urgent problem where workers work day to day and receive this minimal money. So argument two is a better working environment for workers. The premise before this argument is that because fast fashion workers should produce clothes cheap and in massive amounts to earn profit, the companies cannot give enough money for workers. So two reasons why this argument is true. Firstly, companies will know their workers in desperate need of money and they will use that to exploit the workers into making the work in harsh environments and give less money where the workers are forced to work because of salaries. This means that the workers would not be able to be financially stable, meaning that they cannot support their family, also not being able to educate them. This causes a cycle of poverty. The government cannot handle this much people and give income, and also won't try to give income to these workers because they still think that they at least have a job and work. And secondly, by banning this fast fashion, we are able to fix this problem. Some workers will be able to find new jobs by our support. To add on, note that fast fashion companies won't just immediately die out. Since there are people who know about clothes, they can make normal clothes. This means that they don't need to try to make it the cheapest as possible, like fast fashion, making them be able to give workers enough money in our side. The impact is that we significantly fix this environment of shop workers and make them be more financially stable. This is also only exclusive to our side because without the ban of fast fashion, there will still be workers working for that company with harsh environments. This is a huge problem when so many people work over 10 years, Mr. Speaker, but receive so little money and with that they cannot support their family for in the very long term. Thank you for listening.
Nikki, this house would ban the sale of fast fashion. So first I'll give our case setup. So the counter model. Instead of banning fast fashion, governments can enforce regulations to improve labor conditions, promote cycling, and ensure transparency in the industry. This approach addresses issues without eliminating the entire industry. So that if our side can prove that banning fast fashion does more harm than good, we should win this debate. So first argument is job loss. The fast fashion industry accounts for at least half of all fashion industry in the world. Banning such a large sector of the economy could easily trigger a recession and cause large increase in unemployment and deaths. Uh, a recession is when it is when there are two successive quarters that when the economy there's a bad economy, and so impact 1% uh and a 1% increase in the unemployment rate will cause approximately 500,000 deaths. A ban of this will be exact same thing that will trigger a recession. At that time, the impact will be unimaginable. Millions will fall into poverty and will be disastrous. And this is just in the United States. Fast fashion all around the world is banned, causing extreme poverty in many places, especially in Africa, where places are still developing. There will be mass deaths, millions of people dying, and whole countries falling into poverty. Heading with the Israeli war, Ukraine war with Russia, it will be disastrous. To affordability. Fast fashion is extremely affordable and thus is able to clothe some of the world's poorest people. Analysis. Many customers rely on fast fashion for affordable clothing options. Banning it could limit choices for low-income individuals who depend on these options to meet their basic clothing. Impact. Clothing is one of the basic needs of those who are in poverty. Without it, millions suffer from losing a basic need in their lives. In places that are still developing, for example, Sudan, people cannot afford to produce and buy the products that are normal price or expensive. In these places, these fast fashion industries are the main sources of clothes and save lives. After you ban them, what about those people in poverty? They will no longer have affordable clothes to wear, but they will still have the need to wear clothes. They will be forced to buy more expensive products, making their lives harsher. It is also the case with immigrants. There are millions of immigrants coming from Mexico into the United States every year. These people do not get jobs that have a high pay. They will also be affected since that they cannot buy these fast fashion clothes. Impact. Millions of people cannot afford to buy clothes. People in Africa become poorer. Innovation. So innovation speed. Fast fashion are known for their abilities to quickly get their clothes to the consumer market, thus instilling the basis of innovation, quality competition. This requires logistics support, thus helping innovate in transportation of goods and logistics. Material. To create cheap and quality clothes for people, fast fashion must innovate with newer material like organic cotton and stuff like that. Even the common stereotypes is that fast fashion is unsustainable. Companies are still starting to innovate in sustainable fashion. So 3, tech. Fast fashion is innovating new technology to create streamlined assembly lines at factories, and also innovating in other areas such as customer service and store layout, all benefiting the wider world. Impact. The innovation that fast fashion does is extremely important and contributes to the consistent improvement of many fields of technology. It generates innovation and creates a better world. So for all of these reasons, we urge a con ballot. Thank you.
Judge, one clarification that I would like to make before moving on to the rebuttals. Why does fast fashion naturally make companies exploit the workers that work for them? And why does that fact ruin and destroy their alternative? So fast fashion, since it's cheap clothing, the companies has to make these workers work for such a long time to make a lot of these clothing to earn a lot of money and have profit. And also they have to reduce the wages significantly in order to maximize their profit by these very cheap clothing, which is fast fashion. And therefore their alternative about how they would be able to have better environments by some kind of counterfactual does not work at all. And now moving on to the rebuttals. They talk about job loss. However, our team's first speaker, which is the PM, has already stated that companies won't die out so much, but make better clothes, giving more money, which is not true. Thus we said we will support poor people as well. Also, they talk about affordability in their second argument, but we have already had a preemption related to this from the first speaker. If people are so poor to the extent where they cannot buy clothes unless it's $1, the government is obviously going to support those poor people, which is already the status quo. But we have said that in our counterfactual model that we will strengthen this to have no harms, which is the case that we are building. They talk about innovation of fast fashion. However, that is not true when companies can develop to make better clothes and give better working environment. Even when, as I stated, this impact is minimal. when it is true workers starving and struggling, even though they work hard, is more important because that is not justified. Also, they had no rebuttals at all to our first and second argument. I'm talking about justification and better working environments, which means that it still clearly stands. Moving on to their extensions, I would like to add on to what our first speaker has said, building on to our first argument. Our first argument was about the principal justification on our side's points. It is justified to ban fast fashion, even if that means restricting the rights of companies. This is for the majority's happiness, which should be highly valued in this debate. This is the same mechanism as actions such as A, limiting the use of false information-related advertisements for companies for the majority happiness, B, banning the use of guns in South Korea, C, restricting the smoking around public areas, and etc. And I would like to talk about how this can be used in this extension. We have explained to you in this argument that the opposition's world looks like the continuous cycle of poor workers not having enough money and working for sweatshops, always getting exploited. And in order to stop these issues, the intervention of the government is needed and it is justified. Now, building onto this argument, why is it the moral obligation of the government to intervene and ban the sale of fast fashion, and why is it beyond just justification? This is because the government has the responsibility to provide the best quality of life to the citizens. This is by creating the best environment to work, which is not true for the side opposition, since I have already said that their alternative does not work. This is true because fast fashion creates an environment where workers have to work for a long time while being underpaid, as I've said in the clarifications. And this is an exclusive harm on their side because fast fashion is cheap, and therefore for the most profit of the companies, they have to exploit the workers by significantly reducing the wages and making them work for such a long time. And we win this debate by this argument because we can fully fulfill our goal, which is to help the vulnerable people, which are the poor, which includes the workers that work in sweatshops. And we also have enough alternatives for the people who have to afford their clothes, while their alternative has been fully discouraged from our first speaker and my speech. For these reasons, so proud to propose.
Now, in this speech, I would like to have 2 points. So first of all, I would like to give my own argument and adding on to that first argument about job loss. And second of all, I would like to rebut the other side's arguments. So first of all, my own argument. Fast fashion provides jobs for those who are unemployed and doesn't have skills for jobs. Judge, before I start explaining everything, let me put you into an imaginary scenario. You're working in a factory and working hard, trimming strings. But one day, your manager tells you that you're fired. You have no other choice but to simply go to fast fashion work sheds to continue getting a source of financial income. Indeed, fast fashion might be seen as an industry that is bad for workers, but in reality, it is actually beneficial for the economy, boosting it so that the workers who are in dire need of jobs can get the jobs they truly need. Those who work in factories all the while will need multiple sources of financial income to succeed in having a living major cities. Fast fashion industries can be a boost for those who are financially burdened. It is especially true for those who have no skills to do complicated work like engineering or banking. Therefore, they have no choice but to commit themselves in multiple factory jobs for money. If the fast fashion industry is banned as the proposition is supporting, millions of people who are working in this industry shall actually lose their income, and in the meantime, they will not be able to convert to another source of financing. Also, the newness of the fast fashion industry is extremely surprising. In 1 year, the fast fashion industry... Yes?
Okay, you said about how we already said the companies will rather make a normal clothes not dying because we at being able to give more money to workers. So that is not the case.
Okay, but this is not true because governments simply do not have enough resources, and companies do not care about their workers. They're not going to help those workers who are in dire need of finance. And then going back to my argument, so also the newness of the fast fashion industry is extremely surprising. So in 1 year, the fast fashion industry can produce 4 seasons of clothes, and each suited to the newest trend and climate. So this will allow those who are actually poor not have to suffer through periods of discrimination, which are laughed at by richer people. Instead, the clothes are cheap and on the trend, so their personal confidence shall be boosted. Similarly, the benefits of the industry can also be huge. First of all, the industry will get large amounts of money in return because the clothes are cheap and largely accessible. With more money, the government shall collect more taxes. Not only does this boost the economy employment, but it also levels up the personal and group confidence in the company because they believe that their jobs are appreciated and favorable. Now, going on my rebuttal. So, first of all, you talked about that you make workers more financially stable. However, on our side, you're not making the workers financially stable. The workshops are the financial income for the environmental fast fashion industry. Your banning those industries will only stop them from getting the needed finances. You also that you simply can get the money by helping them in other industries, yet that will make the market crash and too much population flood. Now, I would like to emphasize again, Judge, that they said that they're financially stable because those people will simply have other jobs and the government will help them if they really don't have jobs. But that's the problem because governments simply don't have so much money. They don't have so many resources that they suddenly can help all the people in their country who are poor and in need of finances. Again, now your second argument, human rights are violated. So we're talking about, here we have two responses. People choose to engage in this industry because they do not have the ability to go to other industries. Our mechanism is that people know that this job is hard. If there were other jobs that they would have which were easier, they would have done it. Or maybe some people just want to do this job because they like it. In addition, brands do regularly check compliances to labor laws, safety regulations, environmental conservation. These checks help find areas needing improvement and make companies accountable for meeting standards. In addition, many brands have adopted rules that outline their expectations regarding working conditions and sustainability. Some fashion brands have contributed to labor unions and advocate for their fair wages. These brands simply recognize the need for wages and pay them fairly. Their impact is that this generates job opportunities for countless people, which is good. And cross-supplier second contention. If the prop simply ban this industry, millions that participate in this industry will simply lose jobs. So, Judge, after hearing all this, I hope that you can vote for a opposition ballot. Thank you.
Well, adjudicator, the opposition has been talking for the last 20 minutes about the incomprehensible fact that if the government bans fast fashion, it's most likely that the whole society will be corrupted. Their main point in their case was the unavoidable fact that fast fashion is needed in order to make a stable society. Honorable Judge, our side doubts this very seriously, and we gave you countless rebuttals explaining why. Our side also gave you three highly logical arguments, Judge, why you should support the motion that this House to ban the sale of fast fashion, and why you should vote for our team. As the government whip in this debate, I'm finally here as our team's third speaker to clarify more why our team can take this debate home and the opposition team cannot. I'll do this by presenting two major clashes I detected in this debate. The first clash is, does fast fashion harm workers? The second clash is the government justified to do this? Now, before I move on to my clashes, let me rebut some of the points made by the opposition team. Firstly, as we said countless before, the fast fashion industry is only beneficial to workers for their income, and now we're giving them a better chance of getting more income and working in a better environment. However, the only thing they said was job loss. Secondly, we already said that companies would rather make normal clothes without a dime be able to give more money. Lastly, they said we're not making workers financially stable because of job loss. However, that is not it. Note that we stated several times that we are saying that companies won't die out but rather make better clothes because they need the money right. Making the workers not get fired but rather be stable because normal clothes. No, ma'am, does not have to be made so cheap, meaning more money by sweatshop workers. No, ma'am. So let's move on to my first clash, which I came to realize is, does this motion harm workers? I said for this clash, gave one argument for this, and that primary to explain that she gave an excellent mechanism for her arguments, talking about fast fashion companies exploit workers because of their workers' income. She gave a logical reasoning, Judge, that companies will use the desperate need of money of workers and use it to exploit the workers and make them work in harsh environments because of salaries. However, if our motion is carried out, workers will be able to work in better environments and have an acceptable salary that will help them earn their living. For example, no, sir. Instead of getting $1 a day and spending 24 hours stuck inside rooms, thousands of machines, dark and murky, workers will be able to work in a place where the salary is $5 a day, and they'll still work in a new, improved, clean, organized environment with very good stability. This again is important because it shows how our side, the government, can improve the workers' economic stability, even though the opposition keeps arguing it's not. And improving workers is important also because their main stakeholders will get the most big effect of this motion. However, opposing this wonderful argument was an unreasonable argument of opposition we came to be that would make workers lose jobs. Josh, as I told you in the rebuttals, it was obvious that the opposition did not hear our wonderful Prime Minister carefully. We already say that we will have to offer hostility and good care for workers, and the company company will make better clothes. Also, the government will make more money to support workers. That is because, as I explained, the companies will be able to make more normal clothes by being normal companies. So poor people will be able to decrease, which should have money to support the decreased amount of poor people. Now that we're done with my first clash, let's move on to my second clash, which is whether the government was justified to carry out this motion. One argument was given for this clash, and this argument was presented by a wonderful Prime Minister. Hi, Prime Minister, given logical argument explaining why the government is justified to carry out this clash. So, do you remember what I said about the harsh environments and the workers have to face? The government is there for the citizens' well-being, and it should do something when citizens are facing extreme working conditions and almost dying. The government will be justified because it's a real motive to help its citizens, and again, this motion will be help to citizens, making it justifiable. This argument shows the government knows what's doing, make sure everything they do will not harm their citizens, trying to minimize the harm and maximize the benefits. That's such, you should vote for us. However, the opposition somehow made a very logical argument for this clash, and it was the following: affordability. They said many people won't be able to afford good clothes. Have you judged? There are many countries that when the government provides the clothes for, and for example, in Paris, if you sue the government, you have tried to apply for a job, you'll get guidance money. Judge, it seems that the opposition has no logical reason for the argument, and it's clear they will be able to not be able to make a society. That is why you take we will take this two major clashes home, and this is why you should vote for us, and I'm happy to propose. Thank you.
This debate, side proposition starts with a good intention. However, their case is marred by critical failures in their logic and also lots of holes and assumptions in their whole case. My job today as the opposition whip is to point all of these out, Judge, and explain why we firmly believe that opposition has won today's debate. So firstly, to rebuilding. Our opponent tried to refute our argument about job loss by sidelining our impact throughout the whole of the debate. However, Judge, note that down that just sidelining our impact is not enough to deny it and to refute it completely. Judge, thus our impact still stands due to the fact that they have not properly refuted it. The impact is as follows, Judge. A 1% reduction in employment will cause 500,000 deaths. This is very important due to the fact that all of these lives could have been saved, and in addition, the banning of a fast fashion industry can easily cause a 1% decrease in the employment rate. Secondly, our opponent tried to refute our innovation argument by saying that all of their arguments about workers outweigh. However, Judge, note that there's a critical failure of logic in their argument here. They are assuming that companies always doesn't have the workers' best interest in their mind. However, Judge, now I'll provide two concrete examples on why companies actually have these kind of obligations to their workers. For example, the fast fashion brand H&M has implemented several plans aimed at improving labor conditions, including fair wage strategy, which ensure that all textile workers receive a fair wage. And in addition, another example is that the other fast fashion brand Zara has a rule that outlines labor laws and environmental protection. They conduct checks of the people who supply stuff to them and have committed to improving wage in their factories. This effectively counters our opponent's assumptions about our case. So thus, Judge, I believe that I have rebuilt all of our arguments, and now I'll go to refuting. Our opponent's whole case was built upon the argument that says that it is harmful for people that produce these clothes. However, Judge, we have two responses here. Firstly, people choose to engage in this industry because they do not have the ability to go to other industries, as brought up by my teammate in her DLO speech. And secondly, Judge, note that down that brands do regular checks to check compliance with labor laws, safety regulations, and environmental conservation. These checks help find areas needing improvement and help brands improve the factory and workers' conditions. In addition, some fashion brands have contributed to labor unions and advocate for fair wages. These brands recognize the need for wages and pay them fairly. In addition, Judge, the impact here is simple. This generates jobs opportunity for countless people, which is good. Cross-apply our second argument. If the prop ban this industry, millions that participate in this industry will lose their jobs. I believe this impact
generally outweigh their whole case. So judge, now to impact weight. Our impact here as that banning fast fashion will cause a recession and thus cause millions of people to die. Side government's only viable terminal impact in this whole debate is that there will be bad working conditions, which we have already comprehensively refuted with our concrete evidence and examples. This shows, Judge, that you should prefer our concrete examples and logic over our opponent's assumptions and their case marred by critical logic failures. Thus, I am very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Now, so in this bit, I'm going to evaluate the whole debate and tell you that why we should win. So first, I'm going to do some impact weighing. Our impact, as we have told you, is that a 1% increase in the unemployment rate will cause approximately 500,000 deaths. And a ban of this will be exact same thing that will trigger a recession and increase the unemployment rate. Just think of that. The impact will be unimaginable. And also, many people won't be in poverty, won't be able to afford the clothes because they do not have enough money. They'll be forced to buy these clothes that are more expensive than the fast fashion clothes, and then make their already very harsh lives even harsher. And also, we've told you that about the innovation and how it can create more clothes that are more fashion and are more eco-friendly. Our opponents completely dropped that, so we get our full impact. And now, moving on to their arguments. Their terminal impact was that it harmed the workers and there will be a low pay. However, as our second and the third speaker has already told you, there are brands that do regular checks to compliance with labor law, safety regulations, and environmental conservation that make sure that these workers get a fair pay and are treated fairly. Our opponents try to rebut our arguments by saying that there can be new industry. However, Judge, realize the loophole in this argument. The only reason why their clothes can be sold is because that it was cheaper than other clothes before. Now that it is the same price, no one will buy it. So it is not like what they said that people will profit. So for all these reasons, Judge, we urge for a conval to save all those lives. Thank you.
Honorable adjudicator, the opposition side continues to rely on the same material that has already been rebutted by our side, although we are already on the last speech. We believe that their whole case is completely distorted by all three of our speakers of our team. So we're proud to propose. Their whip has tried to bring a new mechanism to their setup. Although it is already very late, I would like to clarify a point related. The minority example of Zara cannot outweigh our 3 layers of mechanism. They cannot brush off and run away the team from the world they create. Please note that we're so superior in the aspect of better environment of the workers. And their case now seems like a case where they're abandoned sweet job workers which work so hard, more than 10 hours a day, but we only received the minimal amount of money. That is rebutted by them saying that we are not making workers financially stable because of job loss, and also them saying that companies do not care about workers. However, that is not it. Note that we stated that several times that we are saying that companies won't die out, but rather make better clothes because they need money, right? And they know about clothes very well, making the workers not get fired but rather be stable, because normal clothes does not have to be made so cheap, meaning more money for sweep shop workers will be paid. Them saying that million deaths happening is also rebutted by this point also. Thus, them saying the government team does not have money is not true. The government will have more money on our side to support workers, as our whip stated. That is because I explained that companies will be able to make normal clothes by being normal clothes companies. So the poor people will decrease because workers will get more money, which we have more money to support that decreased amount of poor people. They had no rebuttal of our first argument, principal justification, second argument, and better environment, and our extension. So we believe that all 3 arguments stands, and their case is destroyed. So we believe that we won this debate. Thank you.